Hello, hello, and welcome virtually to the Center for Jewish History. My name is JD Arden. Those of you who are on camera, give me a thumbs up if you're hearing me okay. All right, thank you for confirming. So welcome to Family History Today. This is the first of two sessions that we in the Genealogy, Ackman and Ziff Genealogy Division at the Center for Jewish History are presenting to help researchers like you navigate archives. Today, archives in other countries around the world, and our next session will be navigating United States archives. So if you would like to see live captions, you can click to enable closed captioning, and I thank very much our live transcriber for bringing to you good, accurate, quality captions. So in the first few minutes of this recording, you will see a slideshow of upcoming events. First of all, the main question, is this session being recorded? Yes, this session is being recorded. So if you tuned in late, or if you want to go back and watch this again, this will be available through the website cjh.org and also on our YouTube channel, Center for Jewish History, within a few weeks. So thank you for attending. The format for tonight's session is that we have already received many questions from you participants, genealogy researchers out there. I was able to choose a few example questions that I'd like to use to illustrate the range of topics that I'll present to you tonight. I apologize in advance if we did not use, and if there may or may not be time at the end to get to other questions. But if your question, if you sent in a question in advance, if it was too specific or overlapped with the other topics that I'll be illustrating tonight, then we will respond to your question from the genealogy division, but I just won't be using it tonight. So all of your research is important to us, and we're always glad to help. But for the sake of clarity and brevity, I've only been able to choose a select number of questions. Also, because of the format of this session, it's just like a meeting, so there's no handout, and I'll be going through the example questions first, and then afterwards, if there's time, I'll be glad to take a few follow-up questions from you in the audience, either by chat or on microphone. So in the meantime, I've muted everybody, and I will open a page with the example questions on this notepad. One moment. Okay. And we'd like to also thank supporters like you and those who are able to donate to the Center for Jewish History. You can go to cjh.org, donate now for more information. And we also thank our sponsors who give grant aids to help us bring programs like this to you. Okay, so let me go through the one moment, sorry, through the screen share. Okay, so to start the session tonight, I've started with a question from Amanda, who is doing research in the Jewish community of Kolkata. I'm not going to read the entire question, but you can see some of the questions have been edited slightly for space. You can see the question here on the screen. So in answer to the question, what would you do for the Jewish community in northern India? The first thing, first database I would recommend is sephardicgen.org, is a free database with a platform with several databases actually. And then I'm skipping ahead on this list to India. Here there is a cemetery, Calcutta Cemetery database. For the sake of time, I'm just going to take one example from the question. Let's see, Ezra was the first family name mentioned. So even if communities didn't self-identify as Sephardic, meaning from the Iberian Peninsula in the Middle Ages, collectively this site, Sephardic Gen, includes communities from the Jewish diaspora, generally around the self-identification Sephardic or Mizrahi. So this, and for those of you not necessarily researching this topic, I hope that this is helpful as a way, an illustration of a way to search. So I put in one of the surnames. This is a database that exists, and this is the information that's available online. So our first step in all of these questions is what's online. That's one step. The second step, as in this next option, is a photo feed that actually is no longer hosted on this server. So if you were to click on these, the photos are not available, but at the bottom is an email address for the computer consultant who put together this photo series in the first place. So the link is still available online. It's no longer accessible on Internet Archives. It may have moved or changed website address, but the resource is out there. So I would encourage our researcher to email the computer consultant at that email address for questions about Jewish community in India. Let us know what happens, what you find. You can always email us back at Center for Jewish History. I'm putting on the screen our email, gi@cjh.org. That's always the best way to contact us and interact. So for our researcher with that question in particular, try that website, contact that email contact, let us know what happens. I would also suggest, because the questioner mentioned, what about other languages, if records are in Judeo-Arabic? If you participate in Facebook, then I would suggest following, first of all, our page, Center for Jewish History, for more events and instructional videos, but also joining this group, Tracing the Tribe, Jewish Genealogy on Facebook, has over 47,000 members. And I recommend it to all researchers because if you ask me or one librarian, you'll get one opinion about your question, but if you ask this group with thousands of members, you will get many opinions and you might get a very helpful suggestion from a researcher like you who is researching the topic that you are interested in. So this that's the where I would send our researcher Amanda first to get started on her research question. And I see you in the chat. So thank you, Amanda, for your question and for being here. Okay, so moving on to the next question. These I've combined two questions that are similar. Mark wrote that he wants to look for information and records from a small town in Poland, as did Teresa, writing in that she's tried JRI Poland, which is also on jewishgen.org. For another small town, what else can they do to look for more records? Okay, so thank you for your questions, Mark and Teresa. So the search path that I would suggest in this case would be, first of all, I'm just going to use the top example, Mark's example. First of all, to go to the free database jewishgen.org, to then go to the town finder under databases, plug in the town name that you're looking for. And also, while we speak, I'm going to keep checking the chat. So I have one eye on the chat. So jewishgen.org is free to join. You just need a website. I mean, an email address. Okay, I see. So you have to enter without those Polish language marks on the letters. So the Polish pronunciation Blendów, Jewish pronunciation Blendów. Actually, with that little mark in Polish, it's Błędów. The L is pronounced as if it is a W. But in any case, Blendów, you can click on the Jewish Gen star icon, and here up at the top is a book recommendation. Also at the bottom of the page are more book recommendations. You can take this name of the town and go to our central library and archive catalog, sorry, Center for Jewish History, search.cjh.org, and plug the town name into the catalog. We have this book recommendation. If you want to see this book or other memorial books online, you can go to NYPL Digital Catalog Yizkor, Yizkor collection. And here you can browse many books online. Let's try now with the Polish spelling and see if they have. Okay, so they don't have, but they have many many memorial books online on the digital catalog of New York Public Library. Also, National Yiddish Book Center has many. We also have a photo catalog made by our partner organization in the CGH building, YIVO, Thousand Towns. And I won't browse, for the sake of time, I won't browse this catalog now. It requires a quick login, but this is also a site where you could browse for photos of a town. You could go to the National Library of Israel Historical Jewish Press. You could put in the town name in the search bar of historical Jewish newspapers in many languages, including English. If you wanted more information, more reading material, more citation of this town. So that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question, what about records? Online, birth, marriage, death, etc. If you already went through Jewish Gen and you looked at the databases for Poland or Ukraine, and you feel like you exhausted all of the resources there, this is the search path that I'm going to recommend. And by the way, Phyllis, I see your question. In these catalogs, in our catalog, sometimes something might be spelled in the Jewish or Yiddish language town name version. So sometimes it might be spelled in the language of the country as it is today. So usually there's a duplicate, but you may have to try both. So now, in answer to the question, what do you do if you already went through Jewish Gen, including JRI Poland, you're not finding records, what can you do? So I'm noting for you again this town name. Let's say Blendov. And I'm going to make a Google search for the town name plus the translation of into Polish of the phrase Civil Records Office. I'm going to type that now. And you can see it auto completes that phrase. This is just a Polish phrase that it's helpful to memorize, or if you use Google Translate, then you can you could save it in your Google Translate search if you're logged in, so that you'll know that registry office will stay in your translation list. And what we do is, if I go back to that tab, just use this phrase in Polish for civil registry office plus the name of the town, and then look through the Google results. It may take some time to find which of the website results is most helpful. Here in the second result, I see the word contact, so that might be faster, but I can also go to the first result, and then I see here the word contact. Some internet browsers will Google Translate the page for you, but obviously the Polish term contact with two Ks is easy enough to recognize. And then on this contact page, I scroll down to find the email, and I would recommend sending a very, very brief email in English and copy and pasted into Polish through Google Translate or any other resource you might have. I would recommend sending a very, very brief message. Don't tell don't tell your whole story. Just say, "Hello, do you have Jewish records from 1900 to 1910, whatever you're looking for," and then say, "Tell me if you have any fee that I can pay to ask you to do a search, and send me copies of any records." I would recommend that you don't pay more than $10 or $20 upfront, whatever you're comfortable with, just so you know that if they agree to do a search for a fee, it should be a small, reasonable fee, the equivalent of $10 or $20 US, and know that you may or may not get results. But this is the next step. If you've already looked online and there's nothing online, and now you want to ask the archives directly. Sometimes it may work better if you hire somebody to go for you to the archive. And we are aware of this website, AppGen, the Association of Professional Genealogists, where you can search for a professional genealogist, and you can narrow down by country. And I'm not going to recommend anyone in particular, but I recommend that you ask other researchers about their experience, or email several of the professionals listed on this site and ask, hello, I would like to hire you to go to the archives in whatever town. This is the address. How much would you charge to go in person and look for Jewish records from this time period under these names? And we at CJH are not endorsing anyone, and we we warn researchers to use your own judgment about what fee is acceptable to you, but this is a research path that has worked for other people in the past. So that was the example from the first question. For the second question, I would do the same research path, just using a different town name. And this is something that you could apply that same process to other countries, to other countries. So in the next question, for example, Slovakia, the research path that I would outline, because there's no specific town name, I would say the way I would do this is I would just Google search Slovakia National Archives, and then go to the main website, and then in the same way find the email address, and in this case, this version of the website is in English anyway, so I would find that email address, email them, say, hello, do you have Jewish records? In the case of this researcher, they're looking specifically for name change records, if those exist, for Deborah. So you could email the National Archives in Slovakia. They may refer you to a smaller municipal archive if you know the specific town. And then same process with the UK or France. Those records that you don't find on JewishGen or Ancestry or Family Search, then the next step is to write directly to the municipal archive and ask if they have records online, or if they can search for you and send you copies, or if you can hire someone to go in person for you. So the related example from the next question that came to us from Lawrence um, about looking for records first in Germany and then in California um, is relevant and will be covered more in depth when my colleague Moria does the next um, session of this series about archives in the US. So, in a similar way that I'll mention now, we in the United States have this NARA uh, um, National Archive system. So, for example, things like military records, citizenship applications, and other documents will be housed in the state's archive of the National Archives system. So in California, there are two. Um, I don't know offhand the difference, but they will inform you what the difference is. So when you contact the National Archives in the state that you're researching, the same way that it would work for another country, you'll get the contact information. Um, Usually they have a specific contact for genealogy questions, um, and you can proceed from there there are if you're looking for records that you did not find on Ancestry or online, that may not be online. So for more about research in archives in the US, log into the next Family History Today session. But this is the research path that you can apply to archives in other countries or here in the US. So the last example that I'd like to illustrate came to us from Hannah, and I use this example edited down to show that sometimes uh, information that you start out with isn't the information that you need um, when you get further along in your research. So the long story short of this question from Hannah is that um, her grandmother was born in this town as she knew it, that I'm highlighting there on the page. And the first thing I would do is to get spelling consistently. So here, just from a quick Google search, we see that the German language version of the town is very different from the Latvian language name of the town today. But there we have both of the names. So if we go back to Jewish Gen Town Finder, we can put in either one of those names. And then here we have the helpful information of the district name. That can help us when we are looking for a municipal archive, because many of these small towns don't have their own archive, and they did not keep their own records in the town. So in this case, um, we could search, but we can assume that it's unlikely that there's an archive uh, in that town itself, a municipal records office like there was in Poland. So the way that we can do this, once you've already checked online, is to go back to Google Translate, go to Latvian, and we're just looking for the word archive. Okay, so there's that word archive, archives, and I'm taking the name of the town in Latvian here and copying it and seeing now in Latvian where we can see. So here is a website in the second result that has online results. But we see here, it's helpful in the the result here tells us that since every little town doesn't have its own archive, this is the regional state archive for that area. And the way we can confirm this, even if we didn't see the town there, is by clicking on the website, and then we find the listing, including this town, for the regional archive in Latvia in this larger town or small city. So here we have that contact information. We saw by chance in the Google search results that there's also there are some records online, maybe through Family Search or Jewish Gen. There's information on Kahila links. But if you exhausted all of those resources and you want to contact the archives directly, that's what I'm showing you today. So you would use that email address, and in the same way, ask if they have records digitized already. That's number one. Number two, if not, do you have Jewish records from such and such time period? If they do have records, can you pay them a small fee by wire transfer or online payment service, and ask them to search the records and send you copies? Or can you pay someone that you found either through the professional genealogist website or through social media platform like Tracing the Tribe, to go in person to look for records in their archive. So the motto of the lesson today is that go by the present day country, if uh, and the present day administrative district. So Susan just wrote into the chat asking about border changes and administrative district changes. You'll find out. Sometimes you might have to try more than once, but if you write to the first archive and they say, sorry, we no longer hold the records to the town, all of those records were moved to such and such place, then at least you have information to go on to go, to contact the next archive. In most cases, a document produced in a location will stay in that location regardless of the border changes that went on around it in Eastern Europe in particular. So in most cases, it doesn't matter if 200 years ago it was the Russian Empire. It doesn't mean that all the records went back to Moscow. Um, if it's a little town in Poland, for example, or in Latvia, then they may have compiled the records um, and they may have taken them to the next biggest town in that region, but they did not go back to Moscow when the Russian Empire collapsed. Unlike and a similar story actually for former Soviet republics that are now countries. If records were produced in Moldova when it was a Soviet Socialist Republic, those records probably still are in that local municipal archive. Or national, I should say, that national archive. It doesn't matter usually for these kind of records that the Soviet Union collapsed. They didn't send all of those kinds of records back to Moscow. So I hope this was helpful. In these last few minutes, I don't necessarily want to I want to invite follow-up questions about the search paths that I've talked about. For the sake of time, I can't invite you to give me a whole new question, but I do invite any of you who have more specific questions to write to us by email. I hope this was helpful as a demonstration of how to approach the kinds of questions you may have. So if anyone has questions about the approach or the techniques that I've talked about, I'll be happy to take some of those questions now in the chat or on microphone. And I will put one more time into the chat the email at Center for Jewish History Genealogy Division, gi@cjh.org, so that if you have follow-up questions, if you have more specific questions, or if you think of a follow-up question later, you can email us. Again, for people who may have joined late, this program is being recorded. It will be available through the Center for Jewish History website and our YouTube channel, usually within 3 weeks. In the meantime, you're welcome to email us and request a free 45-minute Zoom session with a librarian, or those of you who can come in person, you may also make an appointment. We recommend, although you can also just walk in during our regular business hours, which are 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Thursday. So I hope that this was helpful. If you are moved to do so, please go to cjh.org/donate now and make a note that it's in appreciation of programs like this that we're glad to bring to you at no cost. So if nobody has any questions, I thank you for coming and remind you that the second session you can find on our website, cjh.org/programs for more information. All right, have a wonderful week and keep researching your genealogy. Bye-bye.